Welcome back. The commander-in-chief of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, passed away last week, sparking a mixture of joy and grief around the world. The question now becomes whether or not his influence also will be put to rest. Ron, what do you think this means for America?
You still have a lot of issues in Florida with people that left Cuba on some very serious reasons, families that left, families that were divided, how they got here, that has a very strong opinion about Fidel Castro and what he did to people there. There has to be a grieving time, I think, for those folks with his passing. There has to be a time, but then there's got to be a time that what he did to people cannot continue on forever.
Right.
I mean, the same thing happened in Germany. And there became a time that we had to go forward. I think the death of Fidel Castro can serve as a reminder to us as far as economic development that while Castro was still in charge, President-elect Trump was trying to do business in Cuba. He sent his emissaries there to try to do business in Cuba. Cuba is on our border, and I certainly would much rather see us being friends with them than we were back when I was in school in the late 50s and early 60s, that you were scared to death of what was going to happen on that blockade, whether the blockade would be adhered to by Khrushchev and with what Kennedy was doing. So we have a ways to go, but we do have to start.
We have, so I think, and looking at the geopolitical reasons that we made, the choices that we made with Cuba, it's a quagmire, right? But look, we fought a war with Vietnam. We're good friends with them. We fought the Chinese bitterly in Korea. We are friends with them and have great economic ties. Disengagement and isolation doesn't work. Nixon going to China, really 15, 20 years after the Korean War, was a brilliant move, opening up China. And this was right after the Cultural Revolution. We have made the situation worse by just absolutely refusing to engage the Castro regime. Now, what may end up happening? A place like China went from what it was at the end of World War II and what it was after the Cultural Revolution to being the second most prosperous country in the world. Eventually, the Chinese people have gone from being very, very poor up to into the 80s to having a lot of wealth and expendable income. They're kind of living on the high of that right now. However, at some point, in the probably not too distant future, they're traveling, they're seeing other places. They're going to start questioning why it is that, when they go to the ballot box, they have one check that's available to them. So engagement leads to opening up and leads to a transfer or an exchange of information and leads to eventually regime change. We're not going to invade Cuba and take Raul Castro out of power or whomever succeeds him after, he's not exactly a spring chicken himself. But if we engage them, that's going to bring about the change that needs to occur. And this is a country with a great cultural heritage. Very, very well educated, some of the best doctors in the world, best medical schools in the world, to a large degree because they don't have access to technology, so they're actually having to be real doctors and not just count on a thing that goes beep in the back of the room. I think that we have, again, for ideological reasons, our engagement with Cuba has been very, very misplaced. And not to minimize by any means what the Castros did, although I think to be honest, we should also look at the Batista regime before the Castros came into power and what exactly led to 60-some-odd bearded guys landing in a leaky boat and being able to overthrow the entire regime.
And the United States supporting Castro in the Bay of Pigs.
Oops.
Hello.
Right.
It's
yeah. I mean, it's yeah. So, I really wonder if maybe we're going to see Cuba kind of start shifting their economy a little bit more like China has. Actually start exporting goods.
Well,
I know there's probably plenty of people who'd be really thrilled about that because they want Cuban cigars. But now I know you said Cuban cigars aren't the best in the world anymore, but
But the reason that hasn't happened is to a large degree because of the embargo
Because
that
of
we've
us.
had. So I think, it's a win-win situation. We certainly want to help them open up and eventually change their regime. And I think
Right.
ultimately people there want the same thing, honestly.
So do you think that Mitt Romney will be sent by President-elect Trump as the Secretary of State to Cuba to negotiate the way they deal with some of their people, the dissidents, what they do if some people want to come back, whether they'll be able to come back, and to get some new rules and regulations? I think Trump has been very
would
clear that he
like
wants to negotiate
to
some
think-
changes.
I would like to see that. And honestly, I think the one benefit, the one heartening thing, really, and this is kind of off topic, but about Trump's approach is he's very pragmatic about things. So he's not somebody who's bringing an ideology necessarily to the office.
Right.
If he does choose Mitt Romney, I think out of everybody who's been named, he would probably be the best for the Secretary of State position. He has the demeanor and the experience to do very well in that job. I just hope that that is a choice, not Giuliani.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. I think that regardless of who ends up in power in Cuba, whether it continues to be the Castro family or not, I really think that we're going to start getting them to open up a little more to capitalism. So, I'm looking forward to it.
And
So-
once you taste freedom, it's very hard to go back.
Exactly. So, and I think you're going to have the last word on that, Colin. But next up on the flip side, our panel weighs in on Carrier and their plans to move south of the border.